Hi everybody, welcome to the How To Festival. I'm Adrianne Peterson, branch manager at Rancho Penasquitos Library. Today I'm going to show you how to make a classic cheese fondue. I know you probably have one or more fondue pots and you just think it's too complicated to make and you're not sure what to do or what ingredients you need, and I'm here to explain that it's really actually pretty straightforward. Historically, fondue was actually a way to use up leftover cheese, leftover bread, and leftover wine, and to enjoy it on a cold evening, and it's just so cozy and you don't need to save it for special occasions. Once you understand how to make it, you're gonna love it and you're gonna make it all the time, and your friends are gonna ask you to make it for them all the time, and everybody's gonna wanna hang out with you, and you're just gonna be so happy that you know how to make cheese fondue. Okay, let's get started. First, let's talk about our ingredients. Obviously, cheese is the primary ingredient, so you wanna make sure that you're buying really good cheese. And it has to be Gruyere. You do need to use Gruyere cheese. This is awesome. It's nutty, kind of sweet. It's really great. You can use a half-half mixture with another kind of cheese. I like using Emmentaler and Gruyere, but it's not always easy to find. But almost always, Costco has this Gruyere. So I highly recommend that you check it out and try and buy it there. If you buy little pieces at the grocery store, it's really expensive, not so great. First, let's talk about our ingredients. The main ingredient, obviously, is cheese, and you need to use what's called Gruyere cheese. This is what gives it its nutty, sweet flavor, and you can use a mix of Gruyere and something else. I prefer using Emmentaler or Comté, but that's not always available, so I highly recommend that you go to Costco and buy your Gruyere there, because you can get nice big chunks of this at a decent price, and it's a very good quality cheese. You are also going to need to put a little white wine in your fondue, and you need to use some white wine that is a dry white wine. You don't want it too flavorful because it's there to support the flavor of the cheese. At the very end, we're going to add something called Kirschwasser. It's a cherry brandy. You don't want to go overboard with this. It's just a little bit, just adds a little je ne sais quoi, little something. We're going to be using a little bit of white pepper, and we're going to grate a little bit of fresh nutmeg. And you'll need a little bit of flour for mixing the cheese. And later on, of course, you're going to need some bread. Let's talk a little bit about the equipment you're going to need today. You're going to need a wooden spoon to stir your cheese as it melts. You're going to need a scraper to get the cheese out of the pan when you're ready. And you are going to need a box grater for grating your cheese. And you're going to need well, today I'm using an electric fondue pot, because that way I can make the fondue in the pot and serve it from the pot, and I don't need a stove or anything. But if you're not using this kind, if you're using the kind like this nice, lovely enamel one that you set over a heat source like a sterno, then you're gonna actually be cooking your fondue, melting your fondue on the stove top, and then transferring it to this type of pot when it's melted. So the first thing you wanna do is you want to grate your cheese. So I've already grated a pile here. You can use a regular box grater. And when you're grating Gruyere, you can see it has a bit of a rind on it. So you want to make sure that you cut off the rind. You don't want the rind in your grated cheese. So now that you have your ingredients and your tools ready to go, let's get started on putting all those elements together. You're going to want to cut your bread into cubes. They're bite-sized cubes like this. Makes it easy to eat. I recommend that you use high-quality bread. If you can get it from a bakery or a bread store, that would be great. Not grocery store bread, it's not good enough for your fondue. You need the real stuff. You're gonna wanna grate your cheese. I've grated mine. I've put it into a bowl here. I've turned my pan on, so it's getting warm. You only need to turn it up like medium-low. What you're gonna wanna do is get the wine warm. We're not going for boiling. We're just going for warm, little tiny bubbles. So I've got the pan on, starting to get warm. I'm gonna pour my wine in the pan. And then while that's getting warm, I need to mix in a little bit of flour with the cheese. And while you're doing this is you are mixing the flour into the cheese so that it melts more smoothly. So you just want to stir it around a little bit, coat it lightly. You just want to see if you can get it so that the cheese strings aren't all lumped together, but that they're a little bit separate. Can you see how they're kind of falling apart now? That's going to ensure that your fondue melts smoothly, and that's really important. So already with this nifty electric fondue maker, I can see my wine's getting pretty warm. I don't know if you can see it, but maybe you can see the steam starting to come off. And again, you don't want it to boil, you just want it to be warm enough to melt the cheese. So medium, medium-low, keep an eye on it, it won't take very long. So this is the important part. Now we're going to talk about technique. You're going to take a little bit of your cheese and you're going to pour it into the fondue pot. And then you're going to take your wooden spoon and you're going to stir it. And you're going to stir it in with a circular motion. Can you see that? And you're going to stir it in that same circular motion, in that same direction. I'm going counterclockwise. And you're going to do that gently until the cheese melts. Okay, so it's really important, this technique of stirring the cheese. So I'm actually going to unplug right now. So I want to hold this up so you can actually see it. So do you see there's still little lumpies there? So I'm still melting the cheese and I'm going slowly in the same circular direction. And you can see it's getting smoother and the lumps are disappearing. And I'm gently stirring it in the same circular motion. It's not taking very long, is it? So it's not going to take you very long. And again, it seems too thin, you can add a little more cheese. It seems a little too thick, just add a little more wine. Easy peasy. Okay, so I'm feeling like that's a pretty good consistency here. Pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to turn the heat down because I don't really want it to cook anymore, but I need to finish it off. Okay. So at this point, when your cheese is melted, it's at the consistency that you want it, you're going to add your Kirschwasser, and it just adds a little something. You're not going to really taste it, but once you start making fondue, if you forget the Kirschwasser, you'll taste that it's not there. So just start maybe like a ½ teaspoon. Because again, it's just for a little background flavor. And then stir it in gently in the same direction that you were doing before. Okay. Yep, you can see that's getting nice and gooey. All right. So what we want to do now is just a dash of white pepper. This is white pepper. It smells kind of earthy and musty. It's gonna, again, give it a little more depth of flavor. I don't want to overdo it because I would have. I'm just gonna take a little pinch and just kind of dust it in there. Save the rest for later. And then I'm just gonna stir it. So I'm stirring in the Kirschwasser and the white pepper. So now I'm gonna grate my nutmeg. And if you're using powdered nutmeg, just a tiny little dash. You just want to barely see it on top of the cheese. So I'm using my little microplaner and the actual nutmeg, and I'm just gently, gotta hold on to it carefully because you might drop it in the cheese. I'm just barely grating a little bit on top, just a little bit. And I'm going to show you this as soon as I get enough in there. All right, so there we go. All right, so let me show you. Got it unplugged again. Let's see here. Can you see that? See the little bit of nutmeg? Little tiny bits? That's all you want. You don't want hardly any more than that. All right, I'm gonna plug my pan back in so that I can stir it up. So I'm just gently stirring in the nutmeg we just grated in there. Can you see that? See how it's nice and soft? Just stirred it in gently. So the fondue is pretty ready right now. And since this is an electric fondue pot, I'm gonna serve it in this. So what I would normally do is unplug it and bring it to the table and then plug it in again. Obviously the table's all set. And now we need to talk a little bit about fondue etiquette before we can actually eat it. Fondue etiquette, this is really important. So when you get your fondue to the table, let's pretend we're at the dining room table, and everybody will have a fondue fork. This is a fondue fork. See that there are different colors. Everybody needs to remember what color theirs is. So I'm going to pick the pink one today. So that's gonna be my fondue fork. I also have my dinner plate, and I have a fork and a knife. So you're gonna pass around the bread, and you're gonna put cubes of bread on your plate. And then you're gonna take your fondue fork, and you are going to stab it into your bread. And then you are going to gently dip it into the cheese. Look at that yummy cheese. Oh, this is awesome. Okay, now here's what you don't do. Do not put it in your mouth. That's yucky. You're gonna put it back on your plate. There you go, right? Set your fork aside. Then you're gonna take your own personal fork and knife, and you are going to use your fork and knife to eat your piece of fondue. That's really good. You're gonna love it. See how easy that was? You can do it. Simple ingredients. The technique is all in the gentle stirring. Make sure you're using quality ingredients. Follow your fondue etiquette. Only dip with this fork. Do not eat off of your fondue fork. And then eat your delicious bread and cheese off your regular fork. And you're gonna enjoy it so much. Thanks for joining me today. It's been fun cooking with you. I hope you make fondue all the time and that you really enjoy it. Thanks, bye. A whole nutmeg, because oh my gosh, the smell is like nothing else. And again, like the white pepper, we don't want a lot. It's just like a little bit of flavoring. So I'm just gonna use my microplane here, and I can just barely see these little sprinkles